So again, for me, I expose for the highlights. Then in post, I push the exposure back up, and then I recover the highlights before that. Currently, that's giving me the most natural look, and it's giving me super clean, like satin saturated shadows. All right, guys, I did the most with the lighting today. I don't know why, I'm just being extra, but Canon C70. So I previously did a video just showing some quick grades on some footage that someone else released before the camera was actually released in the US. But I finally got to use this camera on a proper gig. Fourth day on this campaign, it's our final day. Did you show them our humble...
This is a boat.
With the boat. Ooh, we should remake on the island.
I'm on a boat.
We were on a boat out in the ocean, so all the footage kind of looked the same, but I like having my process locked down for color grading, just having like a specific node tree set up for each camera. So after a couple hours of messing with footage, I think I finally got my setup and what I want it to look like. So if you saw my video on how I'm going to be exposing the C70 via zebras, that's how I did this whole gig. I actually had to turn on my extended ND range, and I was using 8 to 10 stops of ND for a lot of these shots. So on the shoot, I was using the Vid Atlantic anamorphic filter. So there is some vignetting that you'll see that I'm editing out on here. So this is my first node just on these shots, and it's simply just inverting the vignette. So I wouldn't use this node on normal shots. It's only when I'm using this filter because it does vignette on the C70. On the Z-Cam, it didn't vignette, which was pretty cool. But so our second node is our recovery node. As you guys saw with the Z-Cam, I go in and I paint out the highlights, and then I bring them down in post. And then my third node right here is just a shadow recovery. All this will make more sense when I actually turn on the rest of the nodes. Since FilmConvert hasn't released their C70 profile yet, I'm using their Sin Match tool and I'm changing it over to RE. And then when I go to FilmConvert, I'm just using the RE profile. So I'm just doing that just to keep it somewhat more accurate. I know that's really works out how it's supposed to, but that's how I'm doing it. So basically for when I did this node is I copied over from one of my other nodes. And so you'll see I have this node which is supposed to get skin tones out, but there's no skin tone color, so it's not doing anything. So let's turn those on. And then this is my first grade, getting my first adjustment out on there. The C70 runs just fine where there's no grade on it. I'll show you right here. You see it runs just smooth. But once I start throwing all these nodes, my 16-inch MacBook to i9, I think 32 gigs of RAM, something like that, it starts lagging down a little bit. Sometimes it runs fine though. It's kind of hit or miss. And then you see that's my final grade on top of there. So let me go into another one just to start breaking this down because it will be similar in all of them. So we'll start over on this one and you'll see the node trees, the same exact thing. So let's start breaking this down. I'll leave it on so you can see. So again, that's the vignette. Some people might like the vignette. I don't like a vignette. This is our highlight recovery. You see without the highlight recovery still looks good. And then our shadow recovery, just bring up the shadows a little bit. And then this one right here is our C70 RE via Sin Match. And you see I did make exposure adjustments. This is one thing that I love about this tool is all the exposure correction tools. So you'll see if you use their tools, it'll tell you skin tones, if you turn this on, should be orange. Since I underexposed the highlights, the skin was underexposed, so you can just bring it back in post. I'd rather get safe for highlights and underexpose the skin a little bit and just bring it back in post. When the image is moving, and I'm always adding film grain, there's going to be grain in there and noise in there anyways. And the C70, as you'll start seeing, the shadows are insanely clean. So I'm able to push it a little bit more. We're not even shooting like in a raw format. This is just the XF AVC format. So our next node is the FilmConvert. And then our next one is, now we're saving the skin tones. You see what that's doing. And then we have our first primary grade, and then we have our finisher over here. So let's just turn off our finisher, and then let's just look what I'm doing here. So see, once when you add FilmConvert, this is the look it's giving you. Sometimes FilmConvert gives you a beautiful look. Sometimes it's a little bit magenta, but it gives you like this beautiful saturation and contrast to work off to grade on top. So for me, it's always just been easier if I just use FilmConvert. Go in here and see what exactly I am doing. So let's turn this on real quick just to see. So you see, I'll bring the offset down this way a little bit. It makes everything a little bit more blue. And then I'm also bringing the gamma down into the blues even more too. And then that's just making the whole image go blue instead of the skin tones, because again, we set up the skin tone node over here. There's a lot of videos out there already showing how to save skin tones in DaVinci. I'm not going to show you how to do this in this. I'm just showing the look I'm getting and how I'm getting it. And then on top of that, we are in DaVinci 17, the beta. I've been using their color warper a lot, and basically what I've been doing is I go into the blues. I will reset this, so let's see our blues kind of just have like a typical blue look. I'll take the top here and I'll just drag it into the teals a little bit and saturate them. I know a lot of people like pumping teal into the shadows and they think that's the look. When you see those Hollywood films that have that beautiful like teal and orange look and it's done right, you'll notice the main characters or a lot of the extras in the background are actually wearing blue. Those blues are pushed to teal, or sometimes they're actually wearing teal. So it's not them just pushing teal into the shadows. It's within the frame, there's actual blues in there that are being pushed teal. So again, it's before and after on that. So that's all we're doing in that node. Let's turn off the skin node. You'll see this is what it looks like if you didn't have the skin in there. Then our finisher node, this is just our grade we're doing on top of it. So let's go through here. So I'm doing a lot more. When the HDR tool came out, I thought, oh, this is like an end all be all. I could just use this tool for everything. Come to find out, it's not really for that. It's more for doing fine adjustments within different luminosities of your image. So I'm still using our main color wheels. And the main color wheels is what really pushed the look. So watch, I'll reset this right here. So now this is just the HDR nodes. So see, it's a really subtle effect, but you still don't really get that punch you want. And so if you go into your color wheels, you can just paint it in a little bit more. Let's do it even harder. So let's see before and after on that. So you see, it really just punches up that look a little bit more. Now let's go into our HDR ones. So I've been using the HDR ones. It's kind of annoying because you have to click on each one of these and it'll show you different ones. So basically I just click on each end. So this is all our lower end, and then this is all our higher end. And then if you want to see which each one of them are doing, you could just click this up here and it'll show you what's going on. This is specular, this is the top end. If you go to our highlights right here, you'll see what's being affected there. Let's just reset the whole highlight. So you'll see it looks fine, right? But I do want to add saturation in there. So I'm just going to put this over there. Then add our contrast back in. Let's see before and after on that. See, now let's go to our lights. And you'll see our lights affecting a little bit of the highlights on the skin, and it's affecting that whole background. And on there, we're just pushing that a little, we're just warming it up a little bit because we have a lot of blues in here. So I'm just going the opposite of blue. So let's go in our shadows. So yeah, let's just see what it does. So you see our shadows are being lifted a little bit here. So we could just keep lifting those, and you see that's what it ends up doing. We could bump up the saturation. So before, there's ways to do this without this HDR tool, but you have to go into your qualifier, and you would have to go and select your range, and then from there you'd be able to adjust things. The HDR tool just makes that way easier, and it blends it super well. It's there's not too much finicking you have to do with it. Usually I do when I got a new clip, I just copy over from my last grade, and then I go and take things out or adjust things as needed. So see our skin tone node is still in there, and you'll see it's just affecting the background back here, but barely. And you'll see before and after, this is the final node. And then if we were to take off our primary adjustment, you'll see what it does. It all looks beautiful. This camera's just freaking gorgeous, really. So this one's a little bit harder. This whole shoot's for commercial brands, so I don't try not to show any logos or anything like that. But this is just my assistant. We're going back, and I was like, I gotta get a shot. He looks too cool right here. So this one I did a little bit different. I started with the vignette tool, and then I went over to our Sin Match, put it over to Ari, and then we're saving our highlights here, saving our shadows there. This is our HDR node. So I'm just going in and I'm doing adjustments before FilmConvert. So say if you do your highlight adjustment and your shadow recovery, and you put on FilmConvert and it's still crushing a little bit, go into your HDR modes, and then you can start seeing like the highlights right here and the lights. I went in and I lower those down, and since it's a log profile, it recovers pretty nicely still. And then we do have sharpening going on here, and then we have a light gray just in the highlights using the HDR node and the color wheels. And then up here is our final grade. It's our finisher right there. So you see, I'm not even doing any nodes to save the skin tones. Put a little more contrast in there. On this one, I'm just lowering the contrast a little bit in the shadows, and then another vignette just to fix it even more. But we could play this one back. So you see it's playing back choppy just because we have a lot going on. So you see the log, you can see that most of the highlights are saved on there. And then the skin tones, I'm able to recover those. Also, the reason I use the Sin Match tool first is I brought up the exposure by 1.2 stops. So that's without, and that's with. And then we could zoom in. Let's just make sure the grain's turned off with FilmConvert. And then let's go in here. There's zero noise reduction on this right here. So you see, this is where our standard exposure should have been. And then this is me pulling it up. This is why I like the C70. We're getting smallish file sizes without raw, and we're still able to push the shadows like this and still get decently clean footage. Again, I'm not doing any noise reduction on here. If we wanted to, I would start right here. Let's go into our noise reduction. This is just like the standard noise reduction I usually do. And you see, it cleans it up a little bit. It doesn't do too much because there's not a whole lot of noise in there. And then we have sharpening going on after FilmConvert. That's not right though. That should be before FilmConvert because of the grain. But we just turn that back on. So you're seeing how clean a footage and how far we're stretching this footage really. You see, he casts it out. I'm using autofocus on there, so it goes to the background and then it smoothly comes back onto here. So now we're going back to our previous setup. So again, we're saving our skin tones and the yellows in this reel. Then on this guy, this is our first primary grade. Let's turn off the final grade. So you see, we're just taking all the magentas that FilmConvert's making. I mean, if you wanted to, you could go into FilmConvert and you could do the temp. Could cool it down from there. And the tint, and then boost saturation. So you see, that's honestly like a clearer look. Maybe I should have done it before. But I just like having all the control I could get. So there we go. It's doing the same thing. We're just getting a little bit more punch. And then our final grade on top of that, we're just bringing down the gamma a little bit. We go through it. It's the same thing we did on the other one. Color wheels are the same thing. You see, here's the highlights. Some people might like the blue highlights. Again, I like a little bit more warmer highlights. And then we go to our HDR node, and then we see what's going on over here. You see the highlights. Take that off. All it's doing is pumping in a little bit more warms, and then we could probably pump up the exposure a little bit, make it pop more. We'll click up here to see where it's affecting. Yep. So I see it's just affecting like the highlights on the reel and stuff. So we could actually pop those a lot more. Just give it some more contrast. And you see how we're losing some details in the shadow? Let me show you something here. I think this is our shadow recovery node. Let me just show you how much info is in the C70. Let's just bring this up some more. Look at everything in there. Obviously, it's all colored because of our grade. So if we turn off our grade, we even have the noise on FilmConvert. Let's go turn that off again. Look, our grain's all the way up. So we're recovering these shadows, and look how much freaking info, and look how clean it looks. There's zero noise reduction on this right now. So you can see, this is what I love about the C70. You could expose for the highlights. When I say expose for the highlights, I bring the highlights right below peaking. I'm not putting those at the middle gray area. I'm putting those right below peaking. And then from there, I'm able to push this up. Obviously, we're on a boat, we're around water, so there's a lot of light being bounced around. So it's safer for situations like this. If I'm in a specific situation where I think I'm losing blacks and I'm gonna be losing too much detail, I'm gonna bump up the exposure. I'm gonna lose my highlights because that's what's important is the subject. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Again, I'm loving the C70. This thing is just making my job a lot easier. You don't have to rig it up. You can just put it in the bag, take it out, and it's ready to go. Done deal. I know when I first got the camera, I was a little bit stressed when I was color grading it because I was like, I think I might like my Z cam a little bit more, but it's just because I had to get used to the footage and learn how to work with it, especially when I'm underexposing a lot more compared to the Z cam. There's times where I'm pushing the exposure by like 5 to 7 stops and you're able to bring it down. With the C70, I'm doing it way differently. Again, exposure for the highlights, and then it doesn't seem like there's a lot of details in the low end, but you just got to learn how to bring them up naturally. So again, for me, I expose for the highlights. Then in post, I push the exposure back up, and then I recover the highlights before that. Currently, that's giving me the most natural look, and it's giving me super clean, like satin saturated shadows. A whole kind of different look and workflow, but it's working for me so far. And on top of that, the camera is just an all-in-one camera. There's nothing else you have to mess with. So yeah, guys, that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. Also, I'll put a link down in the description for this light because it's super cool. Put up here. Let me show you some other things. I'm just going on. There's different color modes you could do. The lighting effects. I like the lightning one. Yeah, that's sick. A lot of things I'm gonna do with this light. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. How you turn this off? There it is. Anyways, peace.